This is Making Sense of Life and Reality. Welcome to Making Sense of Life and Reality. I'm your host, Angel Michael, and today I am graced by the presence of Natasha Karanja, as you've previously heard from Michael's podcast. She has gone through her own experience with a vegan and understanding a new life and making sense of the life of a cousin who has a different view from what you have, and you're just like, wow, very interesting. It's been a learning curve for the whole family. What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a cool, interesting way of approaching things. I mean, we read about it and
For sure.
you see other people do it. So, I mean, it's been interesting to accommodate to somebody with like key differences. I think that's been cool seeing another person's like POV and why they're vegan, yeah.
What was your biggest point that stuck with you?
Okay, it's not my first time seeing a vegan. In high school, I guess we were all challenged by a friend of mine to be either vegetarian or vegan. So I think that was like my first experience. But
Yeah.
with Michael, the fact that he's been able to stick to it for such a long time, I think he said he's been a vegan for 7 years. So that's really long. So I think that shows a like really cool discipline and just commitment to a cause that he truly believes in. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like he's demystifying a lot of things when it comes to like fitness and
Nice.
and body, I guess body goals. So I think it was cool to see the fact that he can like balance being vegan and also like be committed to like his fitness journey as well.
Most interesting. Today, I'm graced to have her presence because she's a person not so far away who understands this whole conundrum. So I'm happy to bring people that I find making sense of stuff that I didn't know. And this is why I have the podcast. And definitely, where do people start if not home, right?
No, I agree. I agree.
For sure, for sure. So please help us make sense of life and reality from the eyes of a lawyer
Uh-huh.
and AI practitioner. So, and how do they relate?
So weirdly enough, I don't really introduce myself as a lawyer. I guess just like an easy way to identify myself if somebody asks me what I do for work.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I don't. Okay, I did study law in uni, but
Okay.
it's not essentially something I identify with because I'm not a practicing lawyer.
Okay.
So I would identify myself as a policy researcher. So that's what I do for a living.
Nice.
Yes. So within the AI space, so I got a job 3 years ago at Strathmore. It was
Yeah.
like a think tank that dealt with tech policy. And that was like my first introduction to what AI was. Before that, I may have heard of it, but it really wasn't something that I thought of or researched on.
Understood. You know,
Yeah.
just saying like, yeah, I understand. I'm shaking my head saying I'm understanding what you say. But now this one is like, hey, you shake your head and you're like, oh, this is you receiving all the new information.
It was like I remember it was 2022 and I was like, wow, there's a whole world of like tech that I don't understand. The people I don't understand and are bound to like understand like in the coming years. So it's so interesting how AI has boomed from like 2022 till now,
Yeah.
and how like it's integrated into like our day-to-day lives. Like I know we're heavily dependent on generative AI like ChatGPT, DeepSeek and all that. And to think of it like 3 years ago, this didn't even
Was not
maybe it was not
existent.
yet
Oh no, no,
okay, it
no, it was not
existed or not
profound.
utilized, yeah, which is crazy because I know people can't even write a letter without like ChatGPT now, but beforehand you could.
For sure.
So it's interesting to see how AI has essentially transformed like I guess our day-to-day living. Yeah.
Whoa. Why? I know you don't
Uh-huh.
identify as a lawyer, but one of the biggest things I appreciate with life is the lessons you get from life. You know,
Uh-huh.
without even going to school, you can imagine how much you still learn from the world, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the mindset you should always have. Be a curious person and just
Yeah,
like absorb a lot of as much information as you possibly can and always be open to learning. I agree with that as well.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But now you see now in this tank of yours, there's a whole there's a whole low degree in it, and definitely you're aware of the world in a different way because you have you've dived into the books of
Mhm.
law, and at least you
Mhm.
understand structure in a very different way.
It's a positive way to look at it. I think most people describe lawyers as manipulative.
What is the role of laws in
I
society?
mean, to help
Is
you better understand the law, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes, and apply it.
for sure.
Yeah, okay, I
and,
agree
and,
with
and
you.
this part of justice, at the end of it all, other than just law, there's justice to it, right?
To some extent, okay, again, it varies. Okay, for lawyers who cater to like private interests, like, you buying a house or
Okay.
that's like completely different from like a human rights lawyer who cares about your human rights and stuff. But the coolest thing about law is I think the skill set that you gain, like it's applicable in any or every field that you do. So I think lawyers have a fantastic like foundational skill set in terms of how they analyze information,
Nice.
package, deliver. Like I think those are just like really cool skill sets to have that law has given me. So yeah,
You see,
I can identify a little bit in that extent, but like the commercial stuff, no.
no,
Yeah.
but no pressure. But again, now you see, at least you came and found your wow stuff in AI, and
Yeah.
here you are 3 years later, and
Mm-hmm.
you still it seems like this is your road. You found your road, and you're like, yo, I'm going down with AI policy. Your policy researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So please help us understand what that is and how you got to
I got to
that.
that. So
Yeah,
research has always been a passion of mine since my uni days, actually since high school. So I've always known that my career was geared towards like research.
nice.
I guess with the AI stuff, we were all looking for a job, I guess at that given time.
Good.
I saw it, I applied, and I got in. So I was like, cool. So, like, okay, beforehand, it didn't advertise itself as an AI thing. It was more of intellectual property, which I still did at my workplace.
Yeah,
But now I realize it do much more like than IP. So it's AI and a lot of things to do with, like, I don't know if you've heard about it, data protection, like your data rights
for sure, for
and
sure.
data governance. So that's what, like, the area of work it covered. So the sort of AI stuff we would do, okay, we didn't really delve into what AI is. We'll more or less delve into like its policy implications. So how like third world countries, like okay, not third world, global south countries like Kenya and the rest are essentially preparing for AI. So
Okay.
like what is the government doing? What are we doing as citizens? So like in terms of like your skill set, do you have like good digital literacy? Is AI being regulated for social good? Is it diverse and culturally rich? So do you have like like Kikuyu linguistics and how it works or things
Nice.
like that? So yeah, so that's like our scope of work, looking at it and like its policy implications. Yeah.
Whoa. So, what do you really appreciate from having gone through that? I know you can't go through all the details, but again,
Mm-hmm.
what is your takeaway to be like, this is why we need to do this before we apply uh, this new system?
Okay, so for me, in my research, something I started in my master's actually, it was something taught to me. So I went to like an African uni in the UK that was very heavily Africanized. So
Nice.
they taught us this notion of a decolonial approach. So how essentially we apply like Western technology and principles and how they can be like applied like in a Kenyan setting or like in an African setting. Like what
Nice.
does it mean to us as Africans? So I think a lot of our work in my previous job, even now the work I do, is essentially contextualized to ensure that African values and voices are brought forth in how we perceive things. So like with AI, is it something good for us? Just because you hear about it in America or hear it about it in Europe, does it really benefit the day-to-day Kenyan? And then is it something designed for us? Like is it something you can access like in Swahili, or is it something like, let's say like, let me give an example. Okay, so bias is a big conversation in AI. So is it something that's catered towards like recognizing like, let's say black faces, or like yeah, just an African AI designed for like an African or Kenyan
Is
experience?
it custom? Is it
Yeah,
custom
is it
to their
custom?
region
Yeah.
of here, or is it telling you information about
About like it,
US? You know, like
yeah.
some information. You're like, hey, yo, oh, sorry, Nairobi, and then it gives you Nashville or something.
Which, weirdly enough, it's really improved, I guess, because I was reading somewhere Kenyans. I think a big majority of Kenyans use ChatGPT. In Africa, I think we're like the second country that uses AI the most.
Africa continent.
Continent,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes, the most actually. So it's quite impressive. A lot of Kenyans are very like inclined to use like a lot of generative AI. Yeah.
Oh, whether you say generative AI, what AIs are
Oh, the
there?
labels. So
Yeah, for
generative
sure.
AI is essentially AI that has, how do I explain it? Like creative, like it creates information. So it has a
Yeah.
creative
It
output. It
generates.
generates, yeah,
Yeah,
new
I get it.
information. What you feed it, it will generate new information. So it's based off these things called LLMs. So they're called large language models. So
Okay.
it operates on LLMs to essentially generate information based off what you feed it. So like images, text, or audio. Yeah.
Amazing.
We also have machine learning. So
Yeah.
machine learning is essentially So it uses like a repetitive pattern, like learning process. So you feed it information, and then it learns to become better based on it repeating it and learning on its own.
Okay.
Yes.
How long does that take?
I mean, it's
You're saying
instant.
it's learning on its own.
I'm trying to think of examples in machine learning. So let's say like AI diagnostic tools. So let's say like somebody has designed an AI solution essentially to help like somewhere in Trukana to, like to diagnose like chest X-rays or something like that.
Yeah.
So like the AI machine that would be based off machine learning. So you will train the model essentially to learn how to detect like certain things that the doctor is looking for,
Sure.
and then eventually once you give it the prompt, it starts to like learn on its own. So that's how essentially it works. Yeah.
Awesome. Man, so it's a fast learner.
It is. It's a first learner, but based on the information you feed it.
feed
So there's
it.
always human oversight, which people fail to understand when it comes to AI. Like, oh, AI is gonna take over us, but it's based on human intervention and input. At the end of the day, our data. Yeah,
sure,
you
for
feed
sure.
it your data. Yeah.
And it can go as far as your data goes.
I mean, to
That
some
that that,
extent, you
that is
can
the limit.
design it in a way that it can become autonomous on its own. I mean, those are the dangers that people have, especially when it comes to like AI and security risks.
Yeah.
I don't read much on it, so I can't comment, but like, I guess those are the dangers that people talk about. It being becoming autonomous on its own without any
sure.
human oversight. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. With that, did you get to link your law to your policy research?
Yeah. So policy is always like legal based. So yes, I think
Okay.
again it comes to skill set. So a lot of our work would be like around regulatory compliance. So looking at how like maybe AI respects our digital rights under the Data Protection Act in Kenya. So things like that, like how are we creating like laws to essentially cater for our interests, or how are we essentially pushing forth like our narrative, like in the global stage,
And
like from a
how's
legal perspective.
and how is our status after looking at all this information? You're
I mean,
like,
we're doing
is the AI
well.
is good? Is the AI helping us? Is
From
the
a Kenyan
AI
perspective, there's a lot of like the AI ecosystem in Kenya really thrives. There's a lot of innovators coming up, so it's a very
awesome?
vibrant ecosystem. I would say that. Yeah, policy-wise, we have our national strategy. I know a lot of people don't know about that. I mean, there's talks of an act. I don't know how that would work, but I think we're doing a good job in terms of like regulating and utilizing it for our own social good.
So, what's the best way that do you think a normal Kenyan would use AI? You know, you being having interacted with AI so much, you'll be like, yeah, I know Kenyans are using AI, but maybe you're missing it here.
I mean,
That if
it
you did it
matters
this
on what.
other way,
Okay, so
it
it
would be
matters on
amazing.
who, why, yeah, who and why. So like an average business person, of course, use AI, like let's say to essentially like automate some tasks. Like let's say you don't want to hire certain people, like a personal assistant or like a clerk. Like obviously AI would come in handy when it comes to something like that. Or for like a typical, what would I say, like a typical teenager, probably use AI for mental health questions. You know, people like to use AI as their personal therapist. So, I mean, it's dependent on the use. I mean, for a student in uni, it's definitely a cheat code in terms of writing your essays and stuff like that. So there's also that as well. AI should be what you call your co-pilot. I mean, it's essentially there to help you, like, you know, optimize your work.
For
So I
sure.
use it as an assistant. So things may be like, okay, because I'm a researcher. I mean, in the past, I would read one article from another to another. So now we're like, okay, I use a lot of legal AI assistants or like research assistant tools. So I can like download the papers and like type out key terms I want, and it would help me summarize what each paper has and
For
all
sure.
that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
But I wouldn't use it for my main writing, just as a disclaimer. This is a
Yeah, no.
disclaimer.
Actually, even just like for research, like as you've said, you know how we use Google and AI for as our therapists, as our go-to persons. You know, instead of hey, let me call my girl and ask her about how to do this. Let me call my brother. Let me
Yeah.
call this all this. You just go back. You're like, I don't have to call anybody. You just need to do this, and then AI gives you an answer, and you're like, oh, gives you reason behind it, gives you way deeper information rather than somebody telling you, that is very possible. You're like, nah, AI will tell you why it is possible and why it is not
I mean, the
possible, and
dangers to that, I feel like it's sort of like interfering with how we operate as a society. Okay, especially like a Kenyan or African society. I mean, one of our key values is community, like in a sense that you'll call somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And it's important to have that sort of like relational aspect.
The social.
Yeah, the social aspect. It's important. It's like a key value of our society. So the idea that you can over rely on a machine to tell you everything is also a bit dangerous to some extent.
True. I agree to that,
Yeah.
but at times I still feel there are people who, people who give you right misinformation.
Okay, true. I mean, this is where trust comes into play.
Not even trust, but again, even just from those people who always know information, who always know something about something, and for this
Okay.
one time they're telling you something, and you're like, you're in the background, and you're like, no, that does not go like that. But again, right now you cannot correct them because the confidence they're saying it with, the timing that they're saying it with, is just everything else is right other than what they're saying.
And the crazy thing is AI also does the same thing. They're called hallucinations. So like they can create information that doesn't even exist, essentially to satisfy your prompt. So AI also does the same thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, so not everything you see or generate is true. You have to fact check a lot of like things for yourself. It hallucinates a lot of information.
No, that's
Create
a nice.
new sources, especially for research. I think I've tried it once. You'll create a whole new paper that doesn't exist, a whole new author that doesn't exist. So yeah, even AI has those little misinformations. You have to be like super careful
No,
about
thank
it.
you for saying it like that, because I know there are people who will be going down with the AI like the Bible. You're like, AI said.
I mean, not really. Again, it's based on human training.
For sure.
So
No,
how?
and even you giving us this explanation at least eases us from like, take it with a pinch of salt.
I mean, yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. It's useful. I mean, it helps. It's there to essentially ease your workload.
Yeah.
So AI is like the mimicking of human intelligence. Again, the source is human intelligence. So use your intelligence when you're doing it.
Now, question is, when you find it with the hallucinations, or you find it with with these misses, and as you said, remember AI is learning from humans. So, do you think AI really highlights how humans are, our especially our blemishes? Are these our blemishes that you're seeing, especially like the hallucinations? Can you? I bet to get to our age, you have to have gone through
A lot going on.
and socially, and that one piece of information that goes, and then that information just breaks. By the time it's coming back, you're like,
What's happening?
what? And then you actually can trace how it went, and you can actually tell the broken telephone, and you come back, you're like, hey, it's really important how you watch what you say, because as it goes, it takes a life of its own. So this, you're saying this is the same with AI, and now with the information you give it rubbish, takes that rubbish, makes it beautiful, and comes back, and then you're like, yeah, this is it, and then you're like, nah, that's rubbish.
I mean, that's the thing about AI. It just mimics human intelligence from the perspective of like rationality and like logic. When it comes to things like empathy or like, yeah, your EQ, your emotional intelligence and things like that, it's incapable of essentially mimicking that, because that's part of your own personal human experience,
sure.
which I guess a machine can't essentially mimic or have. So that's its distinctive factor.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, because I can imagine I've been the princess of babies, and then you hear how parents talk about the babies, and then you're like, this one has a character of their own. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a baby, but
it's a whole.
they are them. Nobody is, the father is not like the kid, the mother is not like the
No,
kid.
they're
The
their
kid
own
is
person.
the kid.
Exactly, and that's part of like the human experience. Everyone perceives the world in their own unique, I guess, way. So AI is very incapable of essentially mimicking that.
Have you seen dangers? Have you seen from research, what are the extremes of like, hey, yo, this is where we need to put more
Like effort,
oversight and more
okay.
effort?
I mean, okay, there's a security fund in terms of it being autonomous and like the possible dangers it can have.
Yeah.
I mean, within generative AI, so the things such as like red teaming or red labeling, essentially like where somebody would Google like, oh, how to make like a bomb formula, or like I want to kill myself. So things like that, obviously, there have been like guardrails to essentially like stop, like when someone had requests a prompt like that, the AI does not generate any information, or it'll be like, oh, these are the helplines, or you need this or that. So there's that. From the African perspective, I know a lot of like the commercial side wants to implement something called algorithmic like decision making. So where algorithms essentially assist you with like decision making, like insurance, claim forms, trying to think banking, who gets access to loans or not. So the issues would be essentially how they're designed, like how they curate for bias, and whether like they're functional, I guess, for context, as we have discussed earlier. So yes, I'm trying to think of others. Data as well. Data is such a big thing in AI because AI feeds off
Oh yeah,
data.
it's
So I guess the use of data, whether there's consent given, is it like sensitive data, and like, yeah, just essentially how it's processed. Because like how AI models work is like you have people called data annotators. So a lot of like these big companies like OpenAI or like Google or Microsoft. So what they do is like they'll like employ like contractors in Kenya or Africa, like where you can get cheap labor. So essentially like what they would do is like the data labeling, the image, data annotation, so image tagging and all that. So like again, you're feeding off the data with cheap labor and all that. So those are maybe the key like human rights issues that are highlighted in like the value chain. Are there any like labor protections for people like those essentially who are doing such work? Like are they like fairly compensated? Like what are like working conditions that they have? Because the way they do it, especially with like these large M&Es, is in the sense that they let contracting companies do it for them, so they're not essentially held liable because it's not them directly employing you for the work. So I guess that's like a key human rights issue that's been emerging. Like how do we protect like data workers in that field? Yeah.
Do you think if you ask AI to it can give you that answer?
Of course not.
Why not?
Maybe, I mean, it'll give
I think it will give you factors.
if you yeah, we talk about like labor provisions, you know, we talk about like better employee contracts, but like the real implementation comes from like the government and like the organizations and all that. Like they're the ones with like the responsibility beyond. The issue was our laws haven't like adapted to like modern day when it comes to like digital technology. So like who you define as an employee is not like digital work may not like enter that sort of scope. So things like that are things that essentially need to change because it's their responsibility to keep their citizens safe, isn't it? So yeah, I agree with that.
Because the other thing I was like, man, even with government being as complicated and as big as we usually think of it as, can we just make like a national AI that can help us run the country efficiently, effectively?
Yes. Okay, so there's something known as digital public infrastructure. So it's AI for the public service. So that's something that's essentially coming up to play. Like there's heavy investment in that, but it hasn't essentially been rolled out yet. I mean, it can, but like there's a big issue with that. Like how will government use it? Like are they good? Like are there enough laws essentially to ensure that's not used in a malicious or reckless way? I mean, knowing the president of the Kenyan government, there's a lot of like corruption claims and poor governance. So is that something that can be translated as well into like AI management and all that?
Oh.
Yeah.
And no corruption means we're coding that AI is like no corruption in red in X X X X X X X. Just corruption count. That's how it stops. They have mad respect for Kenya, as in like, yo, you've had a Potters from Kenya. You know that blows my mind. Being a superpower, the US having Barack Obama, father coming from Kenya, and him getting to such kind of heights. Go to sports. We have taken medals for years. You know, you
Even
won
in
them.
the AI space, trust me, there are such cool Kenyan innovators. Like if you hear the sorts of
Amazing.
AI applications that are coming out from like Kenyans, like I think there's this one with like to do with like people with disabilities and how they're creating like sorts of some visual aids and like hearing aids, and like these are all Kenyans, and it's like amazing to see. So there's so much talent like in the country itself.
Wow.
It's how it's utilized and I guess how it's compensated. Like you know, these are things now you eventually just have to sell to like a Western company because there's just no market here. No one is willing to collaborate or like buy into your product. Yeah.
And what do you think people miss? Because at times I usually have the energy and the psyche of like, man, this is a great product. Why are people not buying it? So
And it
what?
comes from funding, who's funding you, what laws are in place. Like Kenya, I know like nowadays it's so hard to be an innovator, like with the sorts of like regulation that's coming into play. Like I feel like the government to some extent is like stifling our innovation with so much. You have to do like licenses, you have to gather, like law, like yeah, payments you have to make. So it makes it really hard for an innovator to essentially like get access to the market and start selling. Like it's hard.
Barrier to entry are many,
Yeah, very, very many.
very heavy.
Very heavy. Like, it takes like 2 years for you to get your license or something. I'm like, by the time like the innovation has probably moved forward, like whatever you innovated is not even useful for the market currently. So
One, I actually wonder why and how we ever got to scarcity mentality, and
it's colonial. That's what it is.
that's
We have a lot of colonial roots. So the idea of scarcity is definitely from the colonizer.
and we need to decolonize ourselves.
Definitely. Like the idea that resources are scarce and they belong to a particular group of people, and the idea of access is you have to jump so many hurdles to get. That's colonial mindset.
Taking personal responsibility as nationalists, as patriots of the country, like what Rwanda does. They go out and clean the whole city,
Yeah,
right?
it was very, very cool to see.
That is taken to their heart. You're like, hey.
But there's love for the country. I mean, to do that, there has to be. I mean, but respect comes down to the fact that they respect the government. Like that's something maybe Kenyans don't do.
But again, you see how our government has done us. Like, how do you respect it?
I mean, it's like a parent and child. Like,
Yes.
especially as an adult, you're not really gonna listen much if you don't like what your mom or dad is saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
respect.
they're always tense. It's always a tense relationship because even I actually imagine, even for our parents to feel we're not listening to them. I bet there was a time their parents felt the same.
Of course, it's
I bet the
generational.
other
Yeah.
parent felt the same, but because it's just the cycle of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, even now with this one, there's actually even now more harm. But even just put that aside, how are we moving forward without always just biting ourselves all the time? And now with that comes AI, comes all these ethics and all these good ways that we know, and even knowing how to reinvest back in ourselves so we can be able to grow. You're saying we have we have a lot of startups that need a lot of funding and dope ideas, very good ideas that will serve community. It's not the pockets of the few. It serves community. There are people who are saying, yo, if it was not for this, I don't know how I'll have been able to identify, to see, to notice these tips for me to be able. And that's step one. There's still 3 more steps, but again, you're missing step one to even be able to notice it. And now you see, how do we ever even hope to be able to solve something that is supposed to be in step 4, and yet we're always missing just step 1. So going back to now, as a country, how will we move forward consistently and kill all this and be self-sustained?
I mean, I think it starts with basics. A lot of things like corruption is more or less like a societal attitude. Stems down from like how we perceive certain things. So it's like in your day-to-day living, I mean, try and aspire to be somebody that has integrity and like I guess morals and values. Small changes happen like with good businessmen, like ethical customers, ethical business owners. It starts small.
Yeah, and it
change.
goes so far.
It
Now, see,
does.
now we really need to showcase and highlight why we need to do this, why we're making sense of life, why we're making sense of the reality that you're in. Is to so that you know better, and then now you do better, and because you do better now you be better, and now really hoping personally for the persons that get to watch this, the persons that just even leave, even who don't watch this, just for them to get better and better, to be able to survive the rough life, because life is just has its challenges. So may you be able to have enough energy to to deal with anything else that comes forth. Career wise, you all have to eat. It's in the Bible, you cannot eat if you don't work. So with the work is you have a place that you solve problems.
True. So I think changes in your day-to-day work. It's how conscious you show up as a person. Like, am I trying to be ethical? Am I trying to be a person of integrity? Like, it just shows up in your day-to-day, small, big decisions.
For sure.
I think, and once it becomes a movement, you won't accept like a police officer asking you for like a bribe or something like that. You'll be like, okay, let's follow due process. There are rules here. Let's adhere to that. So it starts with your daily attitudes because it's a societal problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, you have a lot of attitudes to change, a lot of mindsets to change. It's not just for better. It's you're not just changing and then things are just bad.
So even
just
at
for
work,
better.
like let's say like okay, like with your work as an interior designer, someone's like, oh, let's cut the corners. We don't need these permits. I'm like, no, we need them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're gonna do that. So that's your problem. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like right now, buildings falling.
Yeah, like those are that's corruption at first hand. It's not like, oh wow, it's like Mother Nature. No, it's somebody who fails to follow due process.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. Come what may, I think even from construction, and I'm feeling like I can apply it to other things in life. It's like construction is expensive. By the time you're saying you're just doing something small, the money that will go away, and then you're like, you want to fumble with this, you want to not do it right, and then it doesn't come out right.
First and foremost. Consequence. Yeah.
And now you've already used a lot of money because there's no small money in construction. Trust me, as in
there's nothing cheap in life. I mean, if you want something quality, follow due process.
For sure.
Cheap is expensive. It's true. You keep on cutting corners, you'll still find yourself in the same position you were in. So yeah, I think that's an issue that I guess people need to be conscious about. Just following due process and being an ethical person in business, in social aspects. I guess in everything that you do as a person. Yeah.
And to enjoy your own life. Sometimes I'm
to
just
have
like
a good quality life. Being an ethical, okay, it may be hard, but like at least you respect yourself enough to do like
nice.
Yeah, to be good unto other people and yourself. Yeah.
Respect yourself.
Yeah, self-respect is a big. You'll be quite surprised to find out how many people don't have self-respect.
Yeah, and you see, at least when you even say that, at least now you're highlighting that.
Yeah.
And at times you're just like, do I have self-respect?
You'll be very surprised to find a lot of people don't have like self-respect, or they don't really like reach themselves well, or don't have a good relationship with themselves. I mean, all these psychological factors interplay with business, which interplays with AI. Like it's a whole interconnected world.
And actually, even that's why the title, Making Sense of Life and Reality, because it is if you've gone through it, it's in your life.
It starts with you. It starts with basically how you feel about yourself.
Man, so please, I know it's usually rough, but as it said, never go to bed angry. Never forgive as soon as you can. Because again, it's the self-respect, and again, if you can respect yourself, it's easy to respect another person.
Very easy. You cannot pause. The concept of life is you cannot give unto others what you don't give to yourself first. So, like as I say, you cannot give with an empty cup.
Oh, for sure. You cannot give from an empty cup.
No, you have to fill your own cup first before you fill another person's cup. Yeah.
Oh man, thou feeleth the cup of self-respect.
Yeah, feel it.
Overflowing thyself.
It's hard.
It's
hard to practice it, especially like maybe like if others are not doing it, or like if it's so easy to fall into the trap of like peer pressure and doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
even the biggest thing I should say is bringing awareness, and even why we speak about it is for you to be aware, because with some information you never use it now. You won't use it tomorrow, you won't use it next week, but in a month, in a year, in some 5 years, you'll be like, I remember when I was told, I remember this day. They print for you the whole picture. You'll be like, it's like you're seated with them like this that day, and then you're like, yeah, you see, you remember?
Yeah.
Yes, wow. Can you imagine you're using it today?
I mean, that's the beauty about information and knowledge. It's never old or outdated. It's always useful. It's the beauty about wisdom and knowledge. Yeah.
Amazing. And actually, even having studied law, there's a lot of history, right?
Yeah, you really go back.
What do you get to appreciate for having?
I mean, I appreciate
known your history.
principles remain as principles. They don't change regardless of whatever. They don't change with time. Like foundational stuff is foundational stuff, whether you like it or not. So I think it just teaches you the beauty about how like knowledge can travel through time and still be applicable today, and the beauty about how I guess foundational thinkers and how essentially you can build up on that sort of foundational knowledge. Because the beauty about law is that you don't create new information; you just use your facts to support the information that you have. Yeah.
For sure. Actually, even I usually feel life is a build up. It's one generation people gets to this point, the next generation gets to this point, the next generation gets to this point, and it's gets to a place where it's now generational responsibility for you to make sure your family line is ahead from where it was before.
Or even like just tap into the vision of like the founding fathers. Like of course they had great wisdom to start something, yeah. I mean, for me personally, like our grandfather, that's somebody I would really love to have a conversation with. I think he was a visionary.
For
Like
sure.
the things he thought of, even to date, is crazy. Like these are things maybe I wouldn't think of. So that's somebody who was extremely wise as a person. Yeah.
The My previous podcast recording was with Yulo Pangoma, grandson to Peter Kibukosia, one of the guys who wrote the Kenyan national anthem.
Ah, that's really cool. Which is still, I guess, like national heritage now. Yeah, I mean, the national anthem sounds amazing. So yeah.
When's the last time you read the national anthem?
High school.
High school. Let me ask you, if you had the tune tune, I bet you can still sing
I can
it,
sing.
right?
I mean, it's
Word for
memory.
word.
Yeah, like it's part of my knowledge, my memory.
And now the biggest impact now on that is going back to, can you imagine some people sat? Oh, this group of people who sat, because I've actually even come from the studio, you can see how a song with many people who just is arranged and brought together, is cooked and cooked. You're like, whoa. Give them 4 hours, you're listening to the same thing that they were working on, you're like, out of here. So you can imagine for the Kenya national anthem, there's a group of people who sat down and wrote the spirit that they were feeling, that this should run for Kenya for the next so many years. This is the national anthem.
Yeah, and it's
that is-
amazing. And I know a lot of Kenyans identify with the national anthem. It's like a point of identification. Like when it comes to the Olympics and stuff
For
like
sure.
that. Feel really good listening to it. Yeah.
Mad respect to the ones who came before us, and I hope for us who are now here to take up the mantle and go forth and make sense of life and reality in your time, for you to take forward your generation. In the generation of AI, may we be able to make our lives better, make our businesses better, may we flourish, may we be disciplined. As you've said, those things that are easier said than done. But again, in doing them, that's the beauty is. That's where the results and the fruits are in. And they're usually very tasty.
I agree.
And they take time. Now the thing is, they take time. Being a farmer, growing stuff, mango tree, avocado tree, these things take 3 years, 5 years before they get their fruits. But once they do so, you have them for a very long time. So I hope you get to make sense of AI. I wish you are way better 2026 than you have than 2025 you had. I wish you better in your own parts and your own lanes. And shoot for the stars. Be the best AI that you can be. There's AI, so let's work together and make the best that we can be in our own lives and realities. I want to say thank you to Natasha.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for helping us make sense of AI. I hope we can, we can do this again once we've advanced. So at least we can stay updated. We can stay in the know. We can stay in the front, in the front line of taking initiative of our own lives to be better. So thank you. Until next time, this is Making Sense of Life and Reality. I'm Angel Michael,
Natasha Karanja,
our policy researcher. Bless you. Until next time. This is Making Sense of Life and Reality.